Part 3 with our strategy outline sheet. Here we go. So if I'm to go over to my strategy outline, our indicators are 35 EMA, we have an RSI and an ATR. For the RSI and ATR, I've set them to 12 just as a personal preference. I like the way that days divide into it, but you can set them at whatever you would like. Trade setup. This is how I'm going to actually be able to view a trade forming in real time. So I'm going to look through each of these steps, and if I see it all come together, then I'm going to move on to my entry steps so I know when I can actually enter the trade. So to define our trade setup, we've got price action pulls back to the 35 EMA, and it must have at least one prior candle that doesn't touch the EMA, and that is body or wick. So this is going to help me stop getting into a trade when price makes this pattern on the wrong side of the EMA, like out of trend. Even still, just one candle might be a little bit early, but I'm able to refine this later on, so I'm going to use that as my signal for now. The second point, price creates two counter trend candles followed by one trend candle. So if we're in an uptrend, I'm looking for two red candles followed by a green, and if we're in a downtrend, I'm looking for two green candles followed by a red. The third point, candles 2 and or 3 must touch or cross the 35 EMA. The body or the wick is fine. So this defines that if they don't touch the 35 EMA, then there's no point trading them. That is not a valid entry. We must have that pattern and we must have it interact with that indicator. The fourth point, candle 3, the third one, so the trend candle, must not close on the opposite side of the 35 EMA. Once again, if we are in an uptrend and we get our pullback and we have our trend candle, our third candle close, that should be above the 35 EMA. Conversely, if we're in a downtrend and we get our two green candles followed by a red, the red candle should not close above the 35 EMA. Following a successful trade setup where all of those conditions are met, I'm going to look at how I can actually enter the trade. So we have our steps below. Entry step number 1. So I've used entry step number 1 just as a confirmation so I can double check that this is a valid trade. So it's a quick review of the trade setup because in a fast-paced market, you might overlook something and you want to be sure before you actually place the trade and not try and get out of a losing or incorrect trade. So entry step number 2, at the close of this third candle is where I'm going to set my entry. I want to enter as soon as that price closes and all of my conditions have been met. I want to get into that trade immediately. I'm going to set my stop loss below the swing low or above the swing high if we're going short of this second or the third candle. I haven't decided if I'm going to use the specific swing of one of these candles or if it's just going to be the lowest point. I'm also going to set a target of 1-to-1 at the moment, and I'll update this once I know how reliable the strategy is. Factors for optimization. So although I'm still figuring out the strategy, I'm going to look at my options for optimization very early on, just so I know which information to collect while I'm doing my backtesting. It's not impossible to get it after, but it's a whole lot more laborious, and it's already a bit of a laborious process to enter all this, so we might as well do it all in one step. My first factor that I'm going to look at for optimizing is I'm going to test different stop losses. This is going to directly affect how successful our trades are, how often we get stopped out unnecessarily, versus what kind of reward to risk ratio we can get, because if we have a tighter stop loss that is still reliable and getting good results, then we can actually get a higher reward to risk ratio. In order to do that, I need to collect a whole lot of different information when I'm backtesting. So I don't know yet whether I'm going to set the stop loss based on a specific value, if it's going to be based on the swing of the second candle, the third candle, or whichever one's longer. And I may also actually add an ATR value into there. I need to collect all this now so then I can calculate it in the sheet and know what I'm going to go into the strategy with. I'm also going to test the RSI value correlation. So what this means is I'm going to see if there's a correlation between where the RSI is sitting and whether my trade works out to be a successful trade. The third point is to test the entry candle size. I may also want to see whether the size of the entry candle actually affects the profitability or the outcome of the trade. So if the third candle, the entry candle, actually closes beyond the swing of the first and second candle, is that a problem? Or is it ideal to have the entry candle close between the first and second candle? I won't know unless I log it. Going on to the fourth point, test first candle wick. I have a requirement in this trade setup that candles 2 and or 3 must have their wicks or bodies cross the 35 EMA. I haven't said anything about the first candle, and I don't know if this is going to affect the outcome of the trade. So I may want to log, does the first candle in the setup actually cross the EMA, and if so, does it affect the outcome? This strategy outline is in pretty good shape, so I'm comfortable to move on. We'll be able to come back and update a few of these entry steps and the ratio and win rate once we've done all of our testing and optimizing. For now, let's go see how this strategy performs.